When you hear the name Tata in India, you think nation builder, right? A cornerstone of the country. But what if I told you that the story of this iconic company has a much more complicated, even controversial beginning? Let's really dig in and deconstruct this titan.
Yeah, you heard that right. Long before the steel mills and the tech consultancies we know today, the story of Tata gets its start way back in the 19th century. And its foundational wealth, it wasn't just built on cotton. A huge part of it came from the incredibly lucrative and incredibly controversial opium trade. It's a pretty startling piece of history that, really complicates that whole nation builder image.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with those hidden origins, get that out of the way. Then we're going to jump into 3 massive modern crises that really shook the company to its core. We're talking a massive battle with farmers, a crazy scandal involving whispers and backroom deals, and an all-out war right inside the boardroom. And at the end, we'll try to piece it all together to see what it all means for the legacy of this corporate giant.
All right, first things first. To really get a handle on the Tata we know today, we've got to go back, way back. We're talking about a world defined by colonial trade and, well, imperial economics. Okay, so picture this. The British Empire has a problem, a big one. They are absolutely obsessed with Chinese tea. But there's a catch. China doesn't really want British goods. They want silver. This creates a massive trade deficit. So what's the solution? Opium. It was grown by Indian peasants. The British East India Company had a complete monopoly on it, and they just shipped it over to China. It was the perfect, if pretty sinister, way to balance the books.
And the contrast is just, wow. On one hand, you see a gleaming, modern financial hub like Hong Kong, a city that was literally handed over to Britain after the First Opium War. And on the other hand, you see the grim reality, the human cost that paid for it all. A lot of the initial wealth that launched giants like Tata was pulled directly from this trade. A really stark contrast, right? Okay, so with that history in mind, let's fast forward and see how this legacy plays out in the modern world.
All right, test number 1. We're now in the 21st century, and Tata is a celebrated national icon. They've got this incredible idea to launch the world's cheapest car, the Tata Nano. They even called it the people's car. Brilliant concept. But there was just one problem. To build the people's car, they first had to face the people themselves.
And this is where you get this just fundamental clash of worlds. For the West Bengal government, this was a no-brainer. Industrialization, jobs, a booming economy. But for the farmers in Singapore, this wasn't just some empty plot of land. This was their life. It was fertile, multi-crop land that was their livelihood, their identity, their food source. To them, it felt like they were just being shoved aside for a factory.
And that anger, it didn't stay quiet for long. It found a political voice, and fast. What started as a local land dispute just exploded. Opposition leader Mamata Banerjee jumped right in, organizing huge protests. She even went on a 26-day hunger strike that got everyone's attention. Things got more and more tense until protesters were literally blockading the factory's site. You couldn't get in or out. The dream project had become a total nightmare, basically a siege.
And the money involved here, it was huge. When Tata finally had to give up and pull out, the direct hit to their wallet was a mind-boggling 500 crores. And that's just Tata's direct loss. Think about all the suppliers and smaller businesses that had already set up shop nearby. It was a complete financial disaster, born from a failure to connect with the community.
This was the moment the Titan blinked. At a press conference, a clearly disheartened Ratan Tata uttered these now famous words. It was such a powerful admission. Here's this massive company, with all its resources and goodwill, admitting it could not win a fight against a determined movement on the ground. The nation builder had been blocked by the nation itself.
Okay, so the next big test wasn't a public protest. Oh no. This one was fought in the shadows, over phone lines. It was a crisis that was all about perception, about ethics, and it threatened to pull back the curtain on how things really work between big business, the media, and the highest levels of government.
Enter the radio tape scandal. It's wild. The income tax department is investigating something totally different, and they start tapping the phone of a corporate lobbyist named Neera Radia. Well, when those tapes eventually leak, boom, they reveal this incredible web of influence. You've got Radia on the phone with basically every powerful person in India, top politicians, top journalists, and corporate heads like Ratan Tata, seemingly brokering deals on behalf of her clients. Some of these conversations were just dynamite. You have a celebrated journalist who's supposed to be a watchdog, and it sounds like she's acting as a go-between for lobbyists.
For the public, it was a total shock. It just completely blurred the line between who's reporting the news and who's trying to make the news. And right in the middle of the controversy, ta-da.
So we've had an external fight and a public scandal. But the third test, this one might have been the most damaging of all, because the call was coming from inside the house. This wasn't about farmers or journalists. This was a straight-up civil war that broke out in the Tata boardroom.
So, in 2016, the chairman, Cyrus Mistry, and get this, his family is the biggest single shareholder in the company, is just suddenly fired, just like that. What happens next is this insane 4-year-long legal slugfest that goes all the way to the Supreme Court. It was like legal whiplash. One court says Mistry's out. The next court says no, he's back in. It was absolute top-tier corporate drama.
So what was the fight really about? Well, it basically boiled down to this. Mistry's side was screaming foul play. They said he was unfairly fired, that the company was being mismanaged, and that minority shareholders were getting squeezed out. Tata's sons, on the other hand, just said nope, he wasn't doing a good job and we had every right to remove him. It became this ugly public clash of stories that honestly made both sides look bad.
Okay, let's take a breath. An origin story funded by opium, a huge fight with farmers, a massive lobbying scandal, a brutal boardroom war. After all that, what's the takeaway? What do these 3 tests really tell us about the Tata Group today? It seems like the real story of Tata is this constant tug of war. On one side, you have this image of the benevolent nation builder, and on the other, you have the messy reality of what it takes to wield immense power. Each one of these crises was like peeling another layer off that pristine corporate image, revealing the complex and often messy machinery working underneath.
And that leaves us with a big question, one that the single saga really brings into focus, but it applies to all corporate giants. In the pursuit of progress and profit, where does the government's responsibility end and the company's begin? Is following the law enough when people's livelihoods are at stake? It's a tough question, and it's one that titans like Tata will continue to face as they shape our world.